I have a fun one for you today. This is Cameron. I'm Andy's assistant coach in his coaching program, and we're going to talk about how to keep your approaching sessions fun, keep you on point, keep you moving forward. We'll also talk about one of the biggest mistakes I see guys make in terms of going out and doing approaches. Let's get into it. Before I start though, I want to remind everyone that Andy and I run a coaching program. I did just mention it about a second ago. The information will be down below. The biggest thing we've seen is that guys are very appreciative of two coaches that will give a fuck about what they're going through and what they're trying to achieve and have been doing that stuff before them. So if you want help from guys that care, basically, guys that have done this before and guys that will help you on your journey, have a look in the description for that information. But today we're going to be talking about being more social, specifically talking to everybody. This is a lesson I got from Andy, and I kind of want to do a series where I talk about the biggest stuff that Andy taught me in the first year or so of coaching with him. Because when I spoke to Andy for the first time and when I started getting coaching from him, I very much view it as a paradigm shift in how I approach my life in general. Definitely how I approach my self-improvement and my goals. This idea of, you can break down every goal into constituent parts and then just attack it aggressively and go all in, go hardcore. And one of those things was talking to women. One of the first things I wanted from Andy, probably above everything else, was how do you cold approach? Like, how do you get over this approach anxiety? Because I had terrible approach anxiety. And that stuck with me. And pretty much to this day, I'm still afraid to talk to girls. Obviously, I can do it now. Like, I have the experience behind me. But I never really lost my approach anxiety. And in the early days, it was paralyzing. I believe it took me about 45 minutes of walking around with Andy on the first go to actually get a cold approach done. I know some guys are going to tell me that's actually pretty good, but like I had, someone like basically poking me in the back being like, go do it, you pussy, go do it. I can see that you can go and do it, go do it. And Andy was just, talking me through the entire thing. One of the best things I got from that session though was watching Andy, like watching what Andy does. And what Andy did was talk to absolutely everyone he could. Like anyone who was remotely in a position to talk to us and have a conversation with us, he would start that conversation. There was one funny one where we were at the line for some reason at McDonald's. I think I was trying to approach in the McDonald's because he was wanting me to go and talk to girls who were sat down. And there was a girl in there dressed like a Disney princess. Not like a young girl. We're talking like in her 30s or something, but dressed up as a Disney princess. And Andy just started, why are you dressed like this? Like, what the hell? Are you going to a birthday party? Are you working somewhere where they need you to dress like this or whatever? But he was just, genuinely interested and wanted to start a conversation with a random person. And importantly, she wasn't like, someone we would cold approach. She wasn't like the super attractive hot girl. She was just a random person that Andy saw something interesting. And he was like, I want to start a conversation with this person. And the point of this, when you are out approaching, when you are ramping up to approach, the point of talking to as many people as you can see the opportunity to talk to is to kind of get those social gears rolling, to be that that confident extroverted person that you want to be, who's able to talk to people, who's able to just go and start conversations with random hot girls. It helps if you can also start random conversations with anyone that you can see. With the pickup and dating community, they used to have a term called getting into state. And it was very much a similar idea where you would grease the social grooves, so to speak. Like every time when you wake up in the morning, you kind of need to restart yourself socially. Like you need to talk to that first person, get those first words out. This happens to a lot of people. They function on like social momentum. And if you talk to a few people in the morning, like anyone you can, you find it a lot easier to talk to people later because, you've got your mind going in terms of like actually talking to other people, interacting with other people. So I think this is very, very, very useful. And I'm really happy that I had someone like Andy who believes in this kind of stuff. And I don't even think it's like something he does necessarily as a tactic. Andy doesn't really do a lot of stuff as tactics. He very much does what he wants to do. And what he wants to do is talk to everyone. I did mention that there's a mistake I see guys doing with approaching and like day game sessions or night game sessions. And that's getting tunnel vision, like just towards the girls that you want to approach. Like you're only out there to talk to the hottest girls, the girls that you find attractive, and you're not gonna like waste time on anything else. That's the mindset that I see, and that's the actions that I see. I remember especially going out with guys and all they're doing is just like approach. There's just a much more happy and optimistic and buoyant social energy of someone who is willing to just chat to anyone. And some of my favorite guys to go out with, there's one particular guy in San Diego, I doubt he watches any of Andy's content, but he had a point system which was built on the similar idea of like social momentum, where a full-on cold approach to a girl is worth 2 points. But if you talk to anyone in like a friendly manner, in like a social manner, that's worth 1 point. A girl anyway. If you talk to a guy, it's like 0.5 points. So you can stack up a certain number of points. And he was aiming for, I think, 20 points every night out. So if he went out and approached 10 girls, that would be 20 points. But he could also build it up in terms of talking to guys. So he could talk to 5 guys and that would be 2.5 points. He talked to 5 girls, that would be 5 points. So he could build up his social and dating point total that he had, not just based on cold approaches. And I think that balanced view, that view of this whole thing with dating and everything is more of a social thing than it is just a pure going after the girls thing. It gets you in a much better mindset, in my opinion. It makes you more fun to be around. It'll mean people will gravitate more towards you as well. It's a lot nicer to be on a night out and know like 10 people in the venue than just the only people that know you in the venue are the girls you've hit on. It feels a lot more welcoming. I want to bring it back to the day game session with Andy though. I want to look at it from a position of a guy that doesn't talk to many strangers, a guy that hasn't really done this a lot. Who do I advise practically that you start talking to? Because you might be going out and be like, I don't end up in any situations where I can start conversations. I don't end up talking to anyone. And I don't know how to manufacture that sort of situation. So let's talk about it. Who do you talk to? The easiest people to talk to, if you're going out to, say, a shopping center, or you're going out to an area with a lot of restaurants and stuff like that, are the people who are working there. Shop workers in like retail stores, clothing stores, they're an excellent first step when it comes to how do I start conversations with strangers, because they're going to want to start a conversation with you. They're going to, want to try and sell you stuff in the store. Just because they're trying to sell you something doesn't mean that conversation doesn't sort of click in your mind in the same way that a random conversation with a stranger would. Like in terms of social momentum, like your mind doesn't care that it's like a manufactured conversation. And also, you don't have to buy anything. I think it's a big one. Like, don't worry about these people who are trying to start conversations with you that are like salespeople, etc. Especially people who work in clothes shops. Their job is actually to make you feel welcome in the store more than it is to push sales on you. They're going to help you fit things. They're going to help you. They're going to point out sale items and stuff. But they aren't going to be like, buy this thing. They're going to be more like, oh, what are you looking for? That kind of stuff. And then you can talk to them about like, what's hot in the ranges. I'm talking about my conversations with retailers now. Like, it's always like, yo, what's hot? What's selling hard? What have you got that's new in the items? But for you, talk about whatever you want to talk about. If you're new to an area, this is really good. You just say like, what's around? You say, I'm new to the area. Where do I go? Where do I go and see? That's a fantastic one. That's just not just for shop workers. That's for like everybody. If you're new to a city, use it to talk to people, because it's a great, in your mind anyway, it's a great excuse to start conversations. The other one, other than shop workers that are really easy to talk to, are charity people trying to sell charity stuff in the street. I used to always talk to them. I know everyone tries to avoid them. We're doing the opposite of what most people do, guys. We're trying to get conversations started. So you would see like a charity worker. I had a beautiful cop out in Australia anyway, because on a holiday visa, you weren't allowed to actually donate to these people. They couldn't sign you up. So when I got stopped by a charity sale, like someone who's trying to do charity sign-ups, I would be like, hey, you can talk to me if you want. Just be aware that I cannot sign up for your charity because of this reason. And then they would either let me go or they would continue talking, because with these guys, they're trying to, similar to what you're doing, they're trying to rev themselves up. They're trying to keep the groove going, because they've got to try and sell a lot of people in the daytime. And it's really good to keep the momentum going and keep talking to people. I actually spoke to a guy who like runs those street charity people. Like he runs that, and he talks about how like he gets his guys to talk to as many people as possible too, in a similar vein to this, just to keep the momentum going through the day so you don't have a lull. Obviously, if you're in like a venue, like a bar or a club or whatever, the easiest people to talk to are going to be the staff there as well. When I was traveling, I would always go down to the bars near my hostels and just talk to the bar staff in the quiet time, just to get like a lay of the land. So it was kind of like a scouting mission on my first couple of days in a new city. But when you talk to the bartenders, they tend to know obviously the best nightlife. They tend to know where to go. So they were really good people to go and talk to. And it's good when you show up in a new area to go and talk to someone whose job is kind of to talk to people. Like that's the bar. I know it's kind of a cliche, or like telling the bartender your life story, but it's a pretty decent plan if you want to go and talk to someone in the area and you've just shown up. That's a good one. This is more of a bit of travel advice. So those are all the people who are paid to talk to you. People who are not paid to talk to you, we can ramp up to the next level. Friendly old people. Oh my God, this is the easiest thing to do ever, is strike up a conversation with friendly old people. You won't feel scared of them. They will be happy to talk to you for the most part. Even if they're not happy to talk to you, just bounce off and go to a new person. But starting conversations with friendly old people is like the preschool of starting conversations. Like, this is the softest way we can get you into talking to new people. I'm not expecting you to run in there and just be able to talk to any random person on the street, but you are going to be able to talk to some like 85-year-old who wants to have a conversation. You just are. Like, are you going to turn them down? They're adorable. They're old and adorable, and they want to talk to people. They would love talking to a younger person. Make their day. Have a little conversation. It can be as simple as about talking about the weather. I had a conversation with an old person the other day during a street festival. I was walking away, and they were in the park, and they were just, remarking on how busy the street was and how all the young people were having fun. And I just stopped and had a chat with them for 5 minutes. Really easy. The easiest people to talk to. So, take the easy marks. Once you've been able to move beyond the people who are kind of paid to be there and paid to talk to you, you can then move on to old people who are super friendly. One that Andy and I have talked about before is talking to homeless people. I understand this one isn't easy in like North America. Now that I live in Vancouver, I kind of understand this, but I have traveled like Seattle, San Francisco, where else is bad? Albuquerque. So talking to homeless people in Australia and England is easier because they're not usually high. I mean, there are like drug addict homeless in the coast countries as well, but typically if it's in the daytime, you find a lot of homeless people who are very lucid, very easy to talk to. And I had a couple of like people I considered friends who were just homeless on the streets of Manchester. Would give them money sometimes when I had money in my pocket. They were cool people. They were just, down on their luck and out of the shelter for some reason. But yeah, I understand in like North American cities, there's a lot of drug use. And I'd say about 95% of the homeless population here in Vancouver you couldn't start a discussion with them if you wanted to because they were too high. So yeah, I get that. Andy and I are coming from different places. We come from countries where it's not as prevalent to have supreme opioid addiction and crack addiction on the streets. So this is something you can do if you live in like Europe, where the homeless are a little bit more easy to talk to and approachable. We've done people who are working, we've done old people. Now you can start just talking randomly when there's an opportunity to. I wouldn't like stop people in the street, like you're street interviewing or something like that. Typically when I talk to people, it's more like we're stationary waiting for something. Like I'll talk to people in cafes who are in the queue. I'll talk to people when we're at bus stops, that kind of stuff. You just start conversations about stuff that like is happening around you. Very typical way of starting conversations. In England, we love talking about the weather. Talk to people who live around you as well. If you can talk to people in your local area, like your neighbors and stuff like that. I try and start conversations whenever I see my neighbors if I haven't met them before, or they're people who live nearby and I've seen them a couple of times. I do try and, start up some sort of relationship with those people. I guess it's now to talk about when you get like, turned down. Like with cold approaching, there's going to be a percentage of people that will not really want to talk to you, that will basically give you like really short answers and short shrift, or will just ignore you entirely. Compared to cold approaching though, where you'll get more blow-offs in cold approaching, of you starting social friendly chats, you're going to get a lot less people being rude and giving you rude blow-offs, but you are going to get a decent amount of people who are polite but aren't really that interested in talking to you. So it's all about like dealing with that sort of social rejection. If it happens to you, it's unlikely to be you. Okay. If you're starting this idea of like, talking to as many people as possible, talking to everyone you can at any opportunity, just be aware that some people just aren't interested in talking, and it will be, a polite blow off. Very, very rare instance, it will be like, an angry reaction. Like, who the fuck starts an angry reaction to someone just being like in a casual conversation, just starting up a chat with someone? Very few people. But you will get people who kind of side eye you and like are very quiet. And I just tend to like let it go. As soon as I get that kind of reaction, you just kind of let it go and move on, or you just, just don't talk to them in the queue wherever you are. I've mentioned it, but I want to reiterate, it's very unusual. And I typically talk to people who are kind of obviously more open in their body language and the way, I don't know, they just seem more open to it for a chat. As I said, if you're talking to like venue staff, if you're talking to retail workers, they're not going to be like that typically, because it's their job and they're kind of picked to work those jobs because they're able to handle themselves in conversation and help people. So that's not going to happen. This is why I targeted the beginner suggestions at the people who are most likely going to talk to you out there. So once you've got enough experience on all the easy targets that I've mentioned, you will gain that experience to start, opening conversations with basically anyone that looks open, anyone who there looks like an opportunity to talk to. This is obviously not as scary as approaching, and doing it as a warm-up for approaching would suggest that it is meant to be less scary. Yeah, it's kind of like with Good Looking Losers approach anxiety program. You learn that like asking people for help, asking people for the time, those sort of drills are super easy. You can also do that when it comes to trying to start conversations with the harder targets. So just like, ordinary people, you can start with asking for help. So you'd be like, oh, where do I go to find this? So like say it's a monument or some kind of sightseeing thing in the city. And then you ask them for their opinion on it. It's very similar to how Chris words the approach anxiety drills. If you haven't seen that, I'd go and look at the Good Looking Loser approach anxiety program. He typically has some approaches that are like a series of like 4 questions, and it starts like a mini conversation. So you could, if you're trying to like just start conversations with random people, do it from a position of, I'm looking for help. I'm also looking for your opinion on this thing. And then you start a little conversation there, and then you say goodbye, and then you leave. And if you do that multiple times, you get experience, just opening social conversations. Asking questions is always good. Like you go up, you ask for help, then you ask for questions about the thing you asked for help on. And that's a fantastic way of just starting random conversations with people, breaking the stranger barrier, getting your social momentum. Hope this has been an interesting video for some of you. Check out the information on the group coaching below. Peace out.